I would like to start, if I could. Your title is What Could the Startup Nation Teach Us About Innovation? Can you say what you mean by the Startup Nation?
Yeah. So Israel has lots of startups. Actually, I've been working with lots of people or designers or innovators from outside of Israel in the last few years. And one of them told me, what's going on in Israel? What do you have? Do you have oil or something that everybody's interested in Israel? And I told him, actually, we don't have anything which is not technological or human resources in Israel. We don't have any manufacturers, more or less. So the only thing you could find in Israel, and lots of it, is technology and startups and entrepreneurship, which is built in what we have in Israel. And that's one of the major financial way for Israel just to exist. The fact that it is using so much technology. And there was a book called Startup Nation, and he talks about exactly why do we have so much entrepreneurship in Israel. And I think that most people, when they think about Israel, especially right now, if we're talking about what's going on in the world and all the unknowns and the situation here, everybody remembers other things about Israel. But this is one of the causes that we're so different in a sense, and the way that we handle change and unknowns.
So talk about your story. How did you become a part of this startup
before
mission?
I do it, I see Jamie is asking what space do most tech startups play in. So Israel is very known for several things how do you call it? The Mobileye is the latest thing that came from Israel. The auto that you could see outside of the car, an autonomous car could use this invention, and it was bought by Intel. And this key is from Israel. Lots of Fiverr and Wix and Waze, of course, and lots of things that usually people are using in their daily life were invented in Israel. Lots of things related to finance and security, of course. And there are many things that were invented in Israel. Many of them grew here and then established companies purchased, and we're less aware that it started here. But there are many things in tech that have started in Israel. And we have lots of entrepreneurs and young people really interested in building something new. Yeah, thanks, Jamie. So now you're welcome. So I can tell you a short story about myself before we start. Usually when I talk to people, I meet them and we meet face to face, and you could imagine that I have feet, but most people see them when I talk and you don't. So I'm trying to interact with people as much as possible and really tell them and be connected, tell them my story. So my story started, I think, about 15 years ago. My career started when I was a designer in a tech company, a small tech company, actually a startup. And I wanted to change the world. I wanted to be as inventive and to change the world, at least as Steve Jobs. But, it was a small startup and I didn't do that much. And I felt a bit disappointed because many people that I worked with or started to learn with, and they became entrepreneurs and worked with very, very big successful companies. And I was pregnant with my second child. And then, I didn't do anything about it, but I was a bit frustrated. And when I was on maternity leave with my second child, I was called to the office, and I was a bit surprised, when you're called to the office and on maternity leave, it's usually not that good. And the only thing I remember when I went to this meeting is that I took my small baby and placed it in my baby carrier and went to the office. And it was an hour, and I remember only 2 minutes. That when he fired me, my small baby started to cry because my heart pounded so fast against his chest. And it was a shock. It was really unpredictable for me. And I was in shock. And I came home and I said, I have 2 small kids. And how will I find myself? And I was in the middle of my MBA, and it was too much for me. And I didn't know what would happen. It was very, very unknown for me. And then a friend called me and he said, you could start working for my friend. And it was just the beginning of something really, really great, because it was a very successful company that it still exists. So it means that it was a very successful startup. And I started to understand what is it that makes a successful startup? How do you create a successful product? And for years from that point on, I really understood what should be done. And I've been working with many companies, helping them to create these products and to create the design and the experience and everything. And like 7 years ago, Google approached me and said, come and do that in our accelerator. So I was part of their startup accelerator. And I created this program out of that turning point in my life. And I really believe in these like things that happen to you that at the beginning, it looks like, wow, this is like wrong. I'm not in the right location. Something is off. I'm really in the unknown, and something which is very stressful. And I believe that it's always an opportunity to do something better and to learn from it. So that's the beginning of what started afterwards my book, Innovating Through Chaos, because I really believe in these like incidents that, yeah, everything changes, but you could do with it so much more.
Beautiful. I wonder if you could share the framework with us when you talk about the program.
Sure. So we have one slide. So
yes.
After I worked with so many startups and I learned so many methods, like lean startup and design sprints from Google. I went to Google and learned from them the design sprint, so forth. I created this framework, which is very similar to what is like all these together, but it adds more to that. So the first stage is just to analyze, just to understand. And what I add there is the strength and the market and the client. So if you already have a company, and it doesn't have to be a very traditional company, it could be just a small company that already has something in their hand or a product which is successful. In many cases, when they start something new, they just start from the lean startup, which is an idea, but they have strength and they have capabilities and they have clients and they understand the market and they have already clients that are very like suppliers and clients and connections, which are all things that they could utilize. So analyzing is the beginning of what you currently have and what you currently know. It doesn't have to be a very bright idea, but it could be starting from the very basic of what you have right now. Then you have the focus. So many people say like it's an ideation and then you focus on the idea. But for me, you start from very big dreams and you need to select the right one. And that's why I call it focus, although it's like beginning with very, very like off and things that are bigger than what you think. But the potential is in finding the right ideas out of all the things that you learn and you could do. So focusing is the second one. Then you create something. Because I come from design, I have my first degree in design, my second in cognitive science. So I really touch in these 2 points that every entrepreneur needs to understand, which is people and the creation of new things. And in this third part, which is very, very important, because many people say, yeah, I have great technology and I have great ideas and I could just imagine how could people utilize it. But the connection and when the rubber hits the road is when it's when you have an idea that you could show someone. It needs to be tangible. So you're creating something and bringing life into your idea. And it doesn't have to be a perfect product or a beta or a MVP version. It needs to be something that everybody could understand. It could be a demo, it could be a prototype, it could be a first version, whatever, but you need to create something and it needs to be understood and tangible and people could relate to it. And you don't need to have lots of words in order to explain what you're doing. So that's the third part. Then you have to test things. So the third part of making, you need to make it in order to test. So you're not making all the capabilities that could be, you're testing the most important essence of your idea and what is the most risky one. So you're creating something in order to test and you need to de-risk your idea. So most companies, most startups, most ventures are starting from an idea that people really believe in and they have to really understand if that's right or not. And de-risking your idea has to be done through really tangible testing. It's not enough just to ask people and they would say, yeah, it looks great, but it doesn't really mean anything. And the last thing is really taking what we learned through these tests and deciding. It's really saying, okay, we could either change something and make it better, or there is no way to fix this, and we just put it aside, and what we learned, we'll do something else. But in this, or it's really good, maybe you get this result that, yeah, it's perfect. Usually we need to tweak something, but yet, let's say people really love it, so you could grow it from now. But usually what you get is something which is mixed, and you understand what is like working and what is not as best as it could, and then you really fix it. And this is like something in charity. You don't do it only once. Each time you need to create something, a better version, a bigger version. This is what you're doing. And in Israel, what we know that people are doing things really, really fast. And I don't know if any of you visited Israel. Anyone visited Israel in the past? So tell me if you have. No one. Yeah, Jamie, thank you. So tell me, Jamie, did you notice that Israelis are talking really fast and loud, or it's only me?
I noticed the fast, but not the loud. They're absolutely beautiful people, and I hope to visit again.
Sure, you're much invited. Tell me if you're here. So they're talking really fast usually, and they have these ideas, and in many cases, they don't have any filters. So what they think, they would say. So they're really, really fast in just conveying their ideas. And sometimes they look a bit maybe rude even, because what we think is what we say. And we're so used to this kind of interaction. And it facilitates idea creation and facilitates really action. And we're very proactive. So when you're an entrepreneur, you need to talk about your ideas and to get feedback all the time. And you need to know how to stand up to what you think, because, we need to be very to understand what we're doing and why we're doing that, and to convey that to our team and to the VCs and to our clients, and really come from this idea to something which is, this is what could be done with it. And I think it's really important to go through these processes really fast, again and again, in order to be better. And entrepreneurs do that hundreds of times, and sometimes small iterations, sometimes big. But most successful entrepreneurs are not the first version of what they thought of the first startup. So many of them are they know that they failed in the first and the second startup, and in the third, they're creating the unicorn, and they need to know how to do that, and to live with failure, and to learn from failures, and to understand that failures is just a feedback from the outside. So I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Let's pause there for a moment. I want to make sure that we invite questions. We also invite you to turn on your camera. We invite you to ask your question in the chat or by unmuting. What do you, Lori, did you have something? Or sorry, I saw a gesture. I interpreted a gesture.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Jamie, go ahead.
I don't mean to be hogging or occupying all the time, so I appreciate it.
No, feel free.
Not at all. Yeah.
And my camera is on my teeny little laptop, and I'm virtually blind, so I'm looking at a larger laptop behind. So
fair enough.
How do you get people to sort of let go of their assumptions? This seems to be an ongoing challenge. I work for a very large multinational organization, and people get ideas, and then they kind of look for confirmation bias to confirm their assumptions. And we're trying to teach them how to ask questions about what's really important to people and what would motivate someone to change a habit. And I just do you have any experiences with getting people out of their own heads?
Yeah. So first, you're so right, Jamie. This is the biggest obstacle, especially for more traditional companies and bigger companies, for them to learn how to unlearn actually what they know, and to be in this uncomfortable zone of the unknown. And once you're so sure about what you're doing, you try to hold on it. So I'm really sure this is it, and I don't want to change, and I don't want to think about it differently, and I don't want to get feedback that might not be what I want to hear. And I think that the change in the mindset, what I call a growth mindset or an open-minded mindset, is the way that I'm still curious, and I still know that some of the things I don't know, or maybe most of the things I don't know. And if you don't have that mindset of maybe it is right, or I believe that this is right, but I want to validate it. It's very hard for companies to do things different when they're really sure about themselves. And people are trying to protect themselves because they want to be sure. And sometimes the way the company is built, it will not allow you to really be in this unknown situation or try things out. Because if you might maybe fail, you will have a big price, and you'll need to pay this big price. And I know even like some cases that I talk to the clients and they're saying like, what would happen to my reputation in the company? What would be the reaction of my boss? How would people see me when I try something and it wouldn't work? So all the environment of the company should change and to be more open-minded. And the C-level and all the management needs to be in this and have a buy-in in innovation. It doesn't work if there's only one person trying to move this really big boat. And I think that once you start and you go and you have like small success and another small thing, so it's like step by step. You don't have to build a unicorn for the next version for the company in 2 years in the first run, but it's like a journey you go through as a company. And as people, we learn and we grow and we get more mature as professional. And the same thing could happen to our company if the company is willing to change. So we need to be open-minded about the potential of the company, about the capabilities of the team, about how do we believe in the employees, and how do we give them the tools to try, fail, learn, try, and then succeed. So we need to understand that it works more like, if you need to understand it as a VC, like having very small bets, and not like what we're currently doing, that we have like, everything is so sure, this is how we're doing things right now, and this is how it's going to work in the future. So the change in the mindset is really, really important. And I totally agree with you that it's challenging.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. And I like your comment on the small bets too.
Sure. I see.
I'm reminded. Oh, go ahead.
No, I see a question. Yeah, I'm with you.
Great. Go for it. I will save mine for
how
later.
do you get people to let go of the assumptions?
Oh no, sorry. That was me repeating Jamie's because I wanted.
I didn't see that.
Goes with, yeah, no problem. Yeah. I was really reminded in what you said. I was reminded about something that you write about also in the book, which is the risk of doing nothing, the risk of not innovating. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that this is what most big C-level leaders are trying to avoid and not think about. And maybe this is what they have in mind when they're afraid. Because we all know that companies who will not change will stay behind. Everything around us is changing. We surely see that after this pandemic year, but we see it all the time. We see the very big companies taking chunks of so many markets. You see Google going into payments and into social and to so many things related to buying and shopping and everything, and Amazon and Facebook and everything is the same in that aspect. And I think that we need to understand that this is only one side. So these companies, they have the side of the big, very, very big giants, and they have the small companies and the small startups on the other side, taking chunks from that side. So they're stuck in the middle, and they understand that if they want change and innovate and do things differently, they will lose the battle. And everything is moving so fast right now. And we know that technology is moving fast, and we know that the world is changing in a way that we cannot really perceive and predict. So we need to be ready. And innovation is like buying an insurance. And when you need it, it's sometimes too late to try it out first time. So you're doing it all the time and growing and learning and getting better and opening your options to other possibilities all the time. And when you really need it and you're trying to win the battle in your market or something really big is happening, you have the tools to do it much better, and you have the additional options and more products and more services and capabilities to grow from.
That's so beautiful. That I've never heard it put that way. Innovation is like buying insurance. I love that because it reveals that innovation is part of your safety net. Innovation is not the dangerous thing. It's part of your safety net. That's
I think that most people think it's dangerous because they are not used to doing it. So anything new that I would tell you to do the first time, you would say, okay, I'm not sure about it because I never done it. And maybe I don't have the tools and I don't have the skills and experience and capabilities, whatever. And I would try to avoid it. And many companies who are so successful right now, that is the main aspect that is preventing them from being better, because they are so successful, because they are earning so much like money in revenue right now. They're saying, okay, this is what we have right now, so let's just stay as is and catch it. But the thing is that if you catch it here and then it's there, you're staying here. And the market is moving and people are changing. And you could see it right now really clearly, because once we're thinking about what's going on with the needs of our end users and clients right now is really changing because of all the changes. And the last year, the way people think and their needs are changing. There are so many unmet needs out there, so many open opportunities, and we need companies to answer these needs. And if it's a startup and they catch it first, yeah, it's great, but they don't have the powers and the resources and the clients and the connections that a big company has. And that's the advantage that they should use. So they are not as fast as startups and they are not as powerful as the big companies, but they are really dominating right now their share of the market. So they need to get that as a strength and utilize it. And if they don't do it, somebody else will do it. And that's really important to know.
Right. Somebody else will do it.
Sure.
I want to take a moment for questions, and maybe somehow at the same time while you're thinking, I'm sorry, go ahead, Shreyas. Shreyas says, apart from the culture of communicating about the innovation and doing fast experiments, are there any support systems that enable startups to flourish in the startup nation of Israel?
Yeah, so the startup nation started from the government. So they said, okay, how will we have an economy in Israel in the next 20 years? And they understood they need to invest in very high risk startups, maybe just starting with very just low level of understanding and knowledge, because they knew that they're investing in something that will grow, and they're really investing in entrepreneurs and not in the startups at the beginning. So they had a funding from the government, and it started from there. And we have lots of VCs, and we have all the laws and regulations and tax related to that are really providing the right ground for these startups to grow. So that's the beginning. And other than that, we have a very small ecosystem, very connected ecosystem in Israel. So we're a very small country and everybody knows everyone. So if I would just go, in many cases when I travel abroad, I meet Israelis, and I know that I would talk like 10 minutes, 15 minutes max with someone, and we will find someone that we both know, because it's really like a small family. Everybody knows everyone. So the entrepreneurs, they know each other more or less, and they work together. And in many cases, you see that they collaborate really, really fast, and they really love to help each other, which is so, so important. And one additional thing that is very prominent in Israelis is the fact that they always want to find a way, to find a solution, to find something like, instead of doing this way, they need to find another way, which is faster, better. They always have a better idea than everyone else. And when I talk about Israelis, I always tell the same story about there are tests for the kids when they're I think in the second grade. They are testing all the kids, I think in Europe, maybe in some of the parts of the US and in Israel, they're testing them in order to see their capabilities in math. And it's called a PISA test. So it's like a test that everybody takes the same test in order to see the levels of the countries. And apparently Israel is not that good in math. So we're more or less next to Mexico. So we have the numbers, we're not good at math. But in one of these tests, they asked how sure you are you're going to get you're going to be one of the best results. And then Israel came on first. And this is the gap, that you don't have the capability, but you have the belief in yourself, which is really, really, really important when you're an entrepreneur. And startups need to believe first, and to believe that they could do it and the idea could grow. And if not in this way, it will be different. And not this way, it will be different. And they're very flexible. They know that what they start with would not be the last thing that they will do the exit with. They know it's a journey. They know there'll be like ups and downs, and they know that this is going to be a roller coaster. And it's something they're very used to. You know, their life in Israel is very unexpected, and being in a roller coaster is what we do right now. So it's part of what is like the startup nation, actually.
You really hit Shreya's next question. How do people focus on innovations in startups, even amidst the constant war-like situation?
Yeah, first, it's not war-like. We were in more like not only like in many cases. And I think it's not in contrary. I think it's like part of what we have. The fact that we have so many unknowns in this equation called living in Israel. And the fact that people are so used to not really knowing what's going on, and sometimes having a really hard life in many aspects, it helps you to be a better entrepreneur. Because when everything is so sure, and you know that everything would be the same tomorrow, no matter what you're doing, I guess you have less incentives in order to try to change your future and to try to change the world. But when you know for sure that what's going to be in 2 weeks is the unknown, you're so used to tackling problems and hustling and solving and trying to find new ways to do things. And this is not only like the Israeli way of thinking, it's a Jewish way of thinking. You know, most Israelis are Jewish, like it's the Jewish nation. So before we came here, and many Israelis lived in Europe, for example, even there, they knew they need to learn, they need to know how to write, they need to be innovative and to be entrepreneurial in that sense. So it's like the people who started Israel are people who are really familiar with the unknown and with tragedy and with living in this situation. And therefore, they're very innovative in the way they think. And in Israel, when you come and live here, you know that the rules are not that strict. There's always a way to bend the rules, for example, because you can find a better way. Like if you're going to the post office, for example, in Israel, you will never see a line. And anywhere in Israel, like if you're going to eat falafel or whatever, you'll never see a line because people always have an idea how to go from the other direction and they think they could solve it better. So it's like years of trying to solve the line instead of just standing there. And like, I think like 6 years ago, before Waze was so successful. So I worked with Waze like when they were like, I think 15 people, 5 minutes drive from my house. It's like very, very young. And I think I more or less when they just started, I went to Austria and we had a traffic jam of 7 hours and we lost our flight. And we just stayed there and waited in line. And we were just so like everybody stood in line and they just stood in this traffic jam waiting. And we could just imagine like Israel is going like, they will drive in the forest, they will drive in the fields, they will drive in the white areas on the sides. Like they will never ever wait, like no way. It's like we're always finding a way. And then like 2 years after when Waze were so big, I told my husband that we needed Waze in order to not miss our flight and buy 5 new tickets instead. So it's very Israeli to find ways.
That's such a perfect story, right down to the name of the company that was doing that and their observation. Maybe you helped them with this. Their observation that what was needed was a way around, because you could see Israelis figuring it out on their own as best they could. But if you can do that collectively, so much better. Yeah.
And when others help you, so you find another way and you know that there is another way just from the crowd sourcing of ideas of how could we solve that? And I think it's really important to have these smart people think about better futures for our people. We have so many things to understand and to be better with. So we need these people in order to be better.
So I would love to get into some solutions in this conversation. And I thought maybe I would open the floor to folks who are here. If you are looking at a challenge right now, this is a great time to ask Adi for her expertise.
Sure.
And there's always a way to describe it anonymously, so you don't have to reveal anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would ask, like, what are the challenges that you currently have? Because many opportunities are within the challenges, and many opportunities are within the challenges of your clients, of your end users, of your suppliers. So when you're an established companies, you have so much knowledge which is unutilized in any sense. But you know many things. You know that your clients are thinking differently. You know that some of your suppliers are considering another company to work with. You know that the changes are out there. And right now there are so many new opportunities out there. So the challenges that you're facing are in many cases the opportunities that you could take. And it's like two-sided door, more or less. So I would ask, like, what are the challenges that you find, and how could that be used? And I think it's really interesting to see it this way, because in any of these topics that you think you should solve, there are so many other opportunities that you could find. And it doesn't have to be like the next big thing in your company. It could be something very small thing. It could be something that you want to solve in your life. It could be something that you solve in your career. It could be something that it's like a side project that you think, now it's a good time to start a community, whatever, like something that you're thinking about, because there's so many additional capabilities and talents within each and every one of us that we could use. So I think it's a good opportunity right now in this big change in the world to do it. Sure.
So while people are thinking about what challenge they want to bring up, I wonder if you'd like to tell a story about it. You've already told a little bit about the Waze story. Is there another one that you might like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Great. So there was a company called Cloud Endure, and I worked with them when they were like a small startup, just starting and like getting the funding. And what they've done is migration from servers to the cloud. So they had a very good solution to take your data and take what you currently have in servers and in databases and all that, which is usually on premise. So you buy big servers and you place everything there and you protect it really well. And people were very skeptic about moving things to the cloud back then, because they say it's not that safe. We cannot really manage it. If some kind of a leakage of data will happen and security and everything, it was really, people were very worried. On the other hand, they knew that there are so many capabilities and flexibility that you could get from getting into the cloud and using and utilizing a very big network of companies, of computer for a company, so forth. And we started working at the beginning. And at the beginning, he was like very, very small beta, and we didn't like know everything, and we just tried it. And then it grew bigger and bigger into the sense that what we built could not really hold, especially the user experience, the design could not hold the clients they got, because they get to very big clients that have like thousands of machines, and we couldn't hold it. And then we said, okay, we need to rebuild what we're doing and to think differently about what we're doing, because it's not like very small processes and small machines. It's like lots of devices. And then we tried to think about it differently. And we really built it in a different way and talked to many of these clients, understand what they need. And after I worked with them for about a year or so, they got what they wanted. They got really big and successful. And we said goodbye. And I think a year ago, more or less, the product person, the VP of product, called me and he said, we were purchased by Amazon. I didn't know that, but apparently, and come work with us in Amazon. It was like at the beginning of like, I think a few months before the Corona started. And I told him, like for me, I'm so excited doing new things and trying new things and learning new projects and new products, new people, new companies. So it's not for me to work in like a small cog in Amazon. I don't think it's for me. And he said, I imagine that this is what you would say. And then we forgot about it. And he told me, could you find someone really good for us? And I tried to help them with recruiting. And I forgot about it. And then Corona happened. And I think at about April last year, he came back to me and he told me, I'm not sure, but maybe we have someone. It's really hard to hire a really good person and to find who we're looking for. And he told me, like everything changed and, Corona and everything, maybe you could reconsider. And like what I teach people, not to act out of fear, but of hopefulness and curiosity and everything. It's really hard when you're like thinking, but I told myself, maybe you should take it for a year and Jeff will pay. That's what I told myself. And like inside myself, I knew it's not a good idea. I was not really like sure about like, it's not really what I need to do, but because I was afraid about what's going to happen in next year and, the economy could fail and everything, I said, what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it out. And so luckily it didn't work out. So I was so happy that it didn't work out in the end, because, sometimes being secure is only one side of what you're doing. And if you want to fulfill your talents and use your talents and fulfill your like goals in life, sometimes you need to take risks. And I'm so happy that I did, because since then I work with so many new companies and doing like more innovation, product innovation in more established companies and working outside of Israel. And I grew so much out of it. So I'm very happy that this is what ended up happening.
Thank you for making that story so personal. I think it gets both at the corporate trying to wend its way through looking for the right talent, and at, all of these decisions are being made by human beings who have fear. And what do you do with that? And then how do you recover when it goes a different way? How do you make use of that? How do you turn it into something good?
Sure. And I want to say that I really understand when somebody who's been living in a corporate and doing more or less the same thing for so many years and getting all the appreciation for doing that. And then you come and you say, you could do things different. It's not even better, but you could do it different. It makes you anxious just to think about doing things differently. And you're afraid about what could happen and what could be like the change in your career and in the company and everything. So I really understanding from within. When I work with my clients, I try to always relate to them and understand them. And as human beings, we're trying to avoid the unknown. This is why we're all kids afraid of the dark. We're afraid of the dark because we don't know what's out there, right? Right. So I totally understand that. But I know that for a business or for a company or somebody who wants to grow, going for the safe zone, for the things that you already know, is not a way to grow. It's not a way to have new opportunities. And it's not a way to challenge yourself into a new direction.
And you've told us it's not even a way to be safe. The insurance policy is the innovation. Right. I want to bring up Lindsay's challenge here. Lindsay says our biggest challenge in an established company is to get innovation from the top level who supports it through the next level of leadership. Oh my gosh, this is so familiar, Lindsay. Thank you. Their goals are aligned with business results. And so often there's a middle folks, their goals are aligned with business results and so often can be unsupportive of innovation or change. They can see it as disruptive to the bottom line or just too much to add to their already full plates. How can we push innovation through these levels who hold great power and influence?
Yeah, I totally understand. So middle management, they are like pressed in the middle because the C-level, they understand they need to change. They understand that there is no other way. They understand what's going on with the business and what's going on with competition and what's going to be in the future. They understand it more or less, it's especially in high level, in strategic level. But they need to execute, and in order to execute, they need this middle management, right? And on the other side, you have people from the really that they are doing, the employees that are doing the work. They know that they need to change. Sometimes they even think about their maybe resume. What would be the technology that they're using? What would be the next thing they're doing? Maybe some of them thinking about how things could change, and they have great ideas. But there's like this middle layer, they're getting all the pressure because they still need to deliver. They still need to show results. They have lots of things they need to do right now, and they're not really it's like too much for them. And then you tell them, okay, what you've been doing right now, that's 100%, maybe more of your time. Now we want you to do additional thing. And I think it needs to come from the upper level, that the middle level needs the time, the resources, and the goals that are attached to this new future, and not only to the current results and to current revenues and to the quarterly review. And if they don't get that in their goals, they will never do it. It's not like, yeah, because I like to be innovative and cool, I would do it. Never. They will never do it. They need to get the understanding that this is an additional thing. And sometimes instead of doing what you're doing, you will do that. And they need to get the tools. They don't have the tools. So I think that McKinsey had a report like 7 months ago, and most people said, we know that Corona and this era will change what we're doing. And we know it's going to be a big change, and it's challenging, and there are lots of opportunities. But most managers said that they don't have the tools. They don't feel that they know how to do it. So everybody needs to learn how to do it, and to be aware of the options, and feel safe that this is a skill that they can learn and train and be better with. Without the structure and the tools, they will never be able to do it, because actually it's not fair even to expect for them to think differently. Because if you're getting your bonus based on that, this is what people would do. And if you're saying, okay, in addition to that, we want this, and nobody really appreciates that, and it's risky, and if you fail, everybody would blame you, who would do it? Nobody in his right mind, nobody would do it. So they need to understand what that means to them.
It's a beautiful answer. We are winding down to the last few minutes here. We do have one more question that Shreyas asked a few minutes ago. And maybe we can close in about a minute with that. And then I want to give people a couple of resources. Shreyas asked, can you please share some learnings of running the accelerators with Google? How was it different from doing it for others?
So first, Google is very open-minded, and they're trying to help companies and startups all over the world. And in some cases, I have to admit that it was a privilege working with these very young startups that sometimes, for example, they're having collaborations with lots of incubators and accelerators in addition to what they're doing. For example, for several times, I worked with Google and the World Food Organization, like the UN's World Food Program, and they're bringing startups from Africa and from people that usually are not, like, people are not thinking about startups in Africa and North America, for example. And these people, they understand what's going on in their countries, and they understand the people that they want to solve problem for. And I have to admit that what they're doing sometimes is much more important than, having a better algorithm for people to find better movies on Netflix and get less sleep. I think that what we're solving in many cases is not the most important thing. It's just the thing that will get you most money. But what they're trying to solve is, like, people, they have hunger, and how to solve hunger in the world. So they know the people in their villages, and they know what they're trying to solve. So one of the startups that I work with in that program, they wanted to help small villagers who are growing corn. And they know that they're growing, and then they sowing everything, and they have these, like, a few baskets of corn for the whole year for their family. And sometimes when it gets too wet, or it could ruin what they earned for the full year. And how could they help them? Which is, I think, is so important. Most people don't think about it. So the thing that I learned from Google is there are so many variety of problems and diversity of entrepreneurs that we need them, and they could solve so many very important things in the world.
Very exciting. Thank you, Adi. We are at the end of our time. I've put a link in the chat to the free version of Adi's book. I want to really recommend that. I read the full version last night and I very much enjoyed it. And Kate has just put in a link for the next session coming along. So thank you again. Please share your insights on the community platform. I'll be putting some things there as well. Questions are good there, and enjoy the rest of your day at the Unconference.
Yeah, thank you. See you.